Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. It is Sunday, January 20th. I'm still a little under the weather, but feeling better. I think I can struggle with this cold a little bit longer. So let's attend to some games. Finally caught up, which is good. Okay, so he just took the bishop. I'm going to file up my rooks on the b file and probably bring my queen to b3. As long as he doesn't move his knight at e8, that should give me an advantage if he tries to play rook to b8. I'm getting good at knowing this algebraic notation without it being listed on the board. Alright, I need to get this bishop into play. I plan on probably playing that one knight there at b8 to d7. Okay, since I played my rook to e8, I can now play my bishop to b7, fianchettoing it. That was the intention. Alright, he might try to play something like rook to b4, so if I play a4... Oh, no, I can't. I have to hold at a3 there. Alright, try to get the king into play for opposition purposes. You know, on second thought, that may have been a bad move, because he might try something like bishop to, what would that be? Bishop to d5. If he does do that, I'm going to have to defend with a queen, probably, but then he can bring his rook to attack it. See, the thing is, I don't want him to take that knight that's at f7, because that's defending the pawn at h7. Excuse me, knight's at f6. Pawn's at h7. But of course, if I didn't take that pawn, that knight would have to move. Okay, that was what I thought was going to happen. Now I am pressuring that bishop. It's on pre. I messed up in this game a few moves ago. I thought I could move my bishop here, because if he captures with the pawn, I could win the knight. But I forgot that the knight could just take. So I had to try. I decided to try another sacrifice. I mean, if you look at the points, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, 7 pawns to 5 pawns. Major material, I'm down 6, so I'm down 4. That's gonna be tricky, but I'm always up for the challenge. No, I don't take draws. So if I try to... Well, actually, the king can't move. I have to do this, and that's going to be mate. So it looks like I lost this game, in spite of my efforts to try to get a back rank mate. But, you know, such is the game and the nature of it. I always believe the greater the risk, the greater the reward. So you tread water, if you will. Dangerous waters at that. Now if I give check with the queen, he can just depose with the bishop, and then I'm in a bit of a bind. I'd have to fall back to here. So I'm going to fall back to here. I'm going to do that. I'm just going to make a silly move for white here, just so I can make the next move. I can fan Keter this bishop. That's actually not that bad of a move for white, to be honest. But of course, you know, something like this. I don't have to do this, and that could be problematic. But it's not too bad. Oh, it didn't register that move. Actually, I think I failed to hit submit, to be honest. Alright, you know, I really don't want to do this exchange, because then that brings the knight into an active position. I'd much rather do this exchange, because then I'm a little more liberated to do things like file up the queen, and then I could try to flank it with the bishop, perhaps. Again, I just did the same thing. Sorry, it's the whole planning move thing. I'm trying to show you guys my thought process. Well, let's get this rook up here. Okay, that was one of the concerns I had. So I'm going to take out that bishop. It's going to alleviate some of the pressure. I'm still up. It's just a massive amount of material. I'm going to be up 6 points after the exchange. Yeah, we already know this game's probably lost, because, you know, it could just simply continue like something like this. You know, he's going to be able to promote. You know, there's the promotion. Now I have to come back here. You know, he could, well, he wouldn't do that. He could easily defend that pawn there, and then that's my only promotion hope. And he can always start to give me pressure here with checks. This would actually be a better check. You know, then I'd want to come back here. He'd take that pawn. I try to push. You know, he might simply just cover the promotion square. Because now the king has to come here, and then I'm just gonna move that king. Just I have to come there, and you know, then I could promote, and that exchange would be a result, and then he would just push that last pawn, you know, just like this. Now in this case we both promote, and it's looking a lot like a drawed game. I mean, I can just force the draw here. He might decide to go with it, and that's the stalemate. It's unlikely he's going to do that. He'll probably play for the win, as would I. Alright, that's a slightly under tempo move, but it is good in preparation for what I intend to do. So I'm going to just play this and support my pawn chain. Now, of course, that pawn I just moved is considered what's called a backwards pawn, because it's on the back end of the chain. And if you take out the backwards pawn, you can just step up and take out the rest if you have a bishop, in this case on the light square, or the queen in action. Any other piece like the knight or the rook is going to take more than one tempo. Now, I can't checkmate with a bishop and a king, so I'm going to start to play for a draw. I mean, I've been doing so for the last, God, who knows how many moves? You know, I mean, how many moves has this been, you know? I'm not counting, but you guys can count and pause the video on your own. I mean, this is how the game developed. It's a pretty interesting game, to be honest. That was a problem. You know, I made a move. He made, he made a move in response. I had to backtrack. I never like retreating with either color. It drops tempo. See, I should have taken the knight. He would have taken the bishop, but, I chose... Whoops. Sorry, guys. I chose not to. Let's go back through this. Alright, so that's where we were. I do take the knight there, so I do pick that... I do pick that knight up. But then he captures back, but I captured the rook. Looking at the position right now, I should have won. I wonder where... Oh, no. He can take the rook. Alright, so that's where that happened. I try to review my games. These are correspondence games. There's days to make a move. But I do try to... Oh, that was a mistake. Yeah, I made a blunder there. That was a blunder. So that's how I dropped that rook. But, maybe it was an off day. I wasn't feeling very well, etc., etc. Those are all possibilities. Now, this was his... I think this was a mistake. Well, maybe not, because had he taken that bishop, I probably could have promoted before he could, so that's why he chose not to. Now that was a surprise. Oh no, I give check. But that was a blunder, right there, that was a blunder. I'm not a perfect player. I make mistakes every now and then. Now, it was here that he should have just taken that bishop. Well, maybe not, because had he done that, I probably could have got a draw. Pawn and a king versus a king, there's, endgame theory that can lead to a draw. I mean, because right now I can't checkmate. Not with a bishop and a king, so I'm holding off his ability to win. Here, he should have taken the bishop. He probably could have promoted that pawn with no problems. Rook takes bishop, pawn moves down. I'd have to come under it. I could probably still get a draw from that. There were a couple opportunities where he should have taken that bishop with his rook, a sacrifice that he seemed to be unwilling to make. See, now that was a big mistake. So now I got that last pawn. So now he has to get rid of that bishop without losing that rook, because you can checkmate with a rook and a bishop, but it's not looking good for him. I mean, I think he could have made a couple moves earlier that would have been more effective. Alright, I'm going to make this move, because he's probably going to do this, and then I can play here. And then that knight's got to go somewhere. And it really can't go anywhere safe. Okay, I can pick up a pawn here, fork the king in that pawn. That's at, what would that be, c6, c5, c5. That looks reasonable to me. Now you might notice I move quite quickly, and my thought process is as such. Even though these are correspondence games in which I have 5 days, and I encourage you to use every single one of those days to plan out moves. Play them out on your board at home, play them out in the app with the plan moves feature. Every site I play on, whether it's correspondence or also live like chess.com and lichess.org do offer live games. Take your time and plan the moves out. But I play many games, well over 100 in correspondence, so when I attend to any particular game, I kind of play like I'm playing live. Some discourage that. I think is a good idea. Now I'm going to do something radical here, and I'm going to castle queenside because I anticipate he may do the same. But it also strengthens the D file. Okay, we're going to bring the rook over here onto the F file. Now he can't play F6 because that pawn is pinned by my bishop and queen. And now I have a lot of pressure on the pawn at F7. I can take with the bishop. He takes back with the rook. I take with the rook. He takes with the queen. I take with the queen. He takes with the king. You know, on second thought, that might not be the best. You know, I'm going to hold off on that and strengthen the D file with my rooks. Sorry, ignore that Facebook nonsense, right? Alright, now I have to be concerned here. Like, let's say I do something like this. He has a discovered... That's a double check. You know, and that could be a problem. He'd have to kind of work around this. Now, let's say I do something silly like bring this back. He's got that check. But of course, in this situation, I'd probably come here. He can't come here because of the pawn. You know, that silly move might actually be quite good. But instead, I'm just going to play it safe. Alright, let's get that bishop out of the way, because that's a problem. Because had that bishop not been taken out, if I take the pawn, the bishop could take. So now he could do, you know, he could do something like this. I'd come back here. He could try to pressure that there, or he could even just flat out take this. You know, in which case I could try to, I can't do anything really with those. I could try to come here. He can come here. I'd have to double up. Now he could always just come back and take that, or he could take this, and then I have that. Actually, you know what? In this situation, I could do either that or either that. That's actually a little stronger because it defends that pawn, but he could take that knight out. But I'm still 2 rooks to a rook. You know, that's pretty strong. Alright, I'm going to toss this knight into the mix. Taking with the queen is a mistake, even though he would win that. And if I throw the knight in there and he comes here, you know, now I have a, you know, an en-prise move with the knight. I could come here. I could come here. Let's say I come here. If he takes, you know, that sacrifice isn't too bad. As you notice, I'm up a rook for a knight. But let's say he decides to move the rook back, then I can win that bishop. He would win back here. I could deliver check here. That's going to push his king away. Now I could win that bishop there. However, he would then have this, which could be a big issue. So instead of doing that, I might castle. That en-prise bishop might be obliged to move. That might not be the best square because of the pawn. That might be better, but then I could take this pawn here and start to work on a check against the king. Oh, that was that game. I'm sorry, I get so caught up in the planning sometimes to show you guys my thought process. Alright, I think I'm going to push the pawn. He'd be obliged to come here to prevent, you know, a promotion. And in such case, I could come here. He'd then have to try to pressure that pawn. I could then defend it there. And now he's got to work on his remaining pawn to promote it. And that pawn isn't necessarily passed because my pawn at a3 can take it out. So he'd have to work, You know, he'd have to do something like that. You know, and if he did that, I'd try to get my king into the action. He'd probably get his into the action. You know, a sequence like this. You know, that might push him back. You know, here he's not that strong. If he pushes the pawn down, which he probably wouldn't, I could take and check. And now this game is pretty much won for me, but he'd probably be a little sharper than that. Alright, so again, I'm sorry, I caught up in the planning too much. Okay, remember this game, give check. Okay, I can play moves now. Now if he comes back here and captures, I take that. If he decides to exchange queens, I get that. He takes this pawn here, but then I could give check here. And, you know, that would be probably his best idea. I could either play that, I could play this, I could play this pawn move, you know, all to defend that king, defend that rook that the king is attacking on pre. Alright, I'm going to try to kick this knight. Because the idea here is I want this knight to get out of the way. Now, that's probably the best option. Because I want to come here. Now, if he does something silly like pressure the queen with that knight, I have checkmate. But as long as that knight remains there, that's still another obstacle for me to get checkmate. Now, the principles of attack and defense. The principles of attack are to remove the boundaries and the opposition that's preventing you from checkmating the king. Pretty much you're breaking down walls of defense from your opponent's pieces. And the principles of a defense are placing those walls and obstacles for your opponent to contend with. Let me just see. What did he do? He took the knight? I'll just take that. Now this game is very strong. Now I'm considering something like this. You might take with the pawn, and oh no, I can't do that. I thought the queen was on a different diagonal for a moment. All right, so I'm going to just continue to push that pawn. Again, any pushed pawns, especially the passed ones, are problems for your opponent because they can be promoted. It's a bunch of peas. Pushed past pawn should be promoted. Actually, I believe it was Aaron Nimzovich, who was a pioneer in the hypermodern class, if you will, of chess theory. Sadly, he had a hard time in his early career, and when he started to get up and start to be competitive, and he became a grandmaster, and even became a contender for the world championship, he died suddenly. But he always said that passed pawn should be pushed. And the principal theory behind that, again more peas, is because those passed pawns could be promoted. And a pawn turning into a queen is amazing. It's a gain of 8 points. It's a gain of a queen. It can really turn the tide in any game. Now I'm considering this move. That pawn can't take it because it's pinned by the king. Now also I could do something like this. Let's say he takes that. I can do that then. And again, that pawn can't take the bishop because it's pinned by the king. And let's say he challenges that with either that move or this move. I can just give check. Now, the only problem with this move, he can take with the pawn, the knight there, but I can still do this contention. I can even just do this right out and have the same contention. Now, another thing I can do is something like this. Let's say he forgets about the pressure and does something like that, you know, exchange of rooks, Let's say he pushes this. That would be silly. Oh no, it doesn't work there anymore. I'm sorry. I didn't think that went through too much. I just saw the potential for a pawn fork. That pawn would need to be supported. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead with this idea. Well, he drops the defense on that pawn, leaves it hanging. You know, not only is that a major issue, he should do something like this, but let's say he does something like that. Now that would prevent castling, but that would win the rook for me. It's a good idea to see the advantages of your opponent's weakness and to know how to respond to it. I've actually played amateurs and beginners, and because I'm used to playing people of a higher skill, they'd make these mistakes and blunders, and I wouldn't see them right away because I was so focused on the attack plan I already had, or the defense plan. So it's a good idea to stay aware of the blunders your opponent can make, and it's also a good idea to look at the whole board. I had a friend, well, I still have this friend. This friend told me you should look at every piece on the board and see the moves they can make. Yeah, great idea. And if you have 5 days to make your move, like you do on this app because it's correspondence, it's a good idea to analyze that deeply. But I've got a lot going on, a lot of games, real life responsibilities. So I've learned how to limit my need to look at everything and focus on certain parts of the board, certain conflicts, certain pieces that are involved in such conflicts, attacks, defenses. And I learned that from playing a lot of speed chess, a lot of blitz, a lot of 5-minute, 5-second incremental games. But his advice is certainly valuable wisdom. All right, now I'm just gonna make a silly move for me. Oh, I'm in check. Oh, I'm in a bad position. Oh no, it's not that bad. I attacked the knight. He can't do that fork because of my bishop. I wanted to bring your attention to that fork, but that looks okay. So, I'm going to go ahead with that and pressure that knight. Alright, so this wins that pawn like we talked about in the last few videos. Excuse me. Alright, here's my thinking. I'm going to knock out that knight first if he takes with the queen. Or even if he doesn't take with the queen. Oh, see, you know what? If he takes with the bishop, then I'm in trouble. Alright, let me rethink this. Again, you're probably going to criticize me for thinking too fast. Taking out that bishop isn't the best idea. He'd take with the pawn, but that is good for me because it's stacked pawns. Alright, I have an idea. I want to play this at some point. But if I play this now, he can deflect it. So if I play this first, and again, I'm just going to make a silly move just so I can show you. If I do this now, that's still a bit of a problem. This is a tough game. I gotta take that knight out. See this exchange here. That wouldn't be a good idea for him. However, a downside, that leaves a pawn hanging. Alright, so let's bring this rook over here first. Because, of course, I can't show you. That defends the pawn that would have been hanging. What's nice about that is it defends both this checking square and this checking square. You know, the bishop is a very strong piece, especially when it's used against a rook. Now, even if I do that, it's still a stalemate, as you see. I can't checkmate with a bishop and a king, but I am playing for the stalemate, because I can't win. And I don't give up, I don't resign when I can't win. I play for that draw. You know, I play for that stalemate. Now, especially if you're in a tournament game or a club game that are both on the clock, that's continual pressure on your opponent to be able to get a checkmate before you attain a draw. And if they can't do that and run out of time on the clock, that's not a draw. I win that game based on the regulation of the rules. I'm going to bring my knight here. Mostly because if there's an exchange like that, you know, that's good. Of course, I'm just going to make a quick move. I would take with the pawn, but, you know, I want to fianchetto at some point. Now, of course, I would take with the pawn. That really wouldn't be the best for him, though. He could bring the rook over, or he could even... No, he can't castle because of my queen. He could bring the rook over. You know, that could be a problem for me. I just said I don't usually resign. I play for the draw, but this one doesn't look good. I mean, I do know when it's almost impossible to get a draw, especially based on observing the skill of my opponent. I'm going to start some new games here. I'm going to do e4 rather, e4 with that one. I'm going to do 2 with e4 as white, and whoa. I think that's the bird. I haven't seen that in a long time. Alright, interesting. I play openings like that in a Sicilian-style defense. Of course, this is not the Sicilian. The Sicilian would be e4 and c6, but it's similar. There we go. That would be the Sicilian position. Like I said, I want to do another e4, and the third game I can start as white because the app only allows you 3. Game offers as white, and there's my third one, is going to be the English opening. Now, typically, oh, I can't show you that. I have a couple of criticisms about this app, and that's one of them. Sorry about Mr. Rogers, that's another game I play. I'm going to pop in here and make a few moves in games. Alright, that's a pretty big blunder. I have a fork with my pawn on both his knights. I think that's checkmate. Again, I'm not posting to boast or brag, but to show a good game. And yes, I would like to show good games I won, but I have posted losses, I posted draws. Now this is one of those games that I just won't give up. What I like about that is it skewers the bishop through the knight. And he really has no safe square to move the knight. I mean, like, e2 would be good. If I take with the bishop, he could win my bishop. But still, we're pretty even. He is up 1 point. But I think I can pull off a draw at the worst. Alright, so my rook at a8 is on pre by his queen. I'm not concerned with queen to f7 check. Would not be checkmate because of my rook at e7. He would have to capture back with the knight. That would still win a rook for a knight, but it would win a rook. It would win a knight and a queen for a rook. So that's not that. I'm not really too concerned about that. So I'm going to protect that rook. Oh, I made a bit of a blunder there. Maybe not, because I get the bishop there. Sorry, I'm still recovering from a cold. You probably have already heard it in my voice. Oh, that rook is on prey. Well, let's look at this. What if I do this and let him take that rook? I give check here. He has to come here, but that's checkmate. But if he comes here, I can give check. He can run out there, which could be a problem, but then I would win that knight. You know, I'm going to try that. It's a bit of a bait and trap. I mean, a rook and a queen is more than sufficient for me to give checkmate. Looks like I lost that bishop. But I could win a rook for that bishop. That would end up like this. I'd probably want to do something like that. It's still a pretty tough game. I'm down 2 points. I'm going to give it a try. I'm up 3 points, so I'm considering this sort of sacrifice. That does leave me up a point, and then I can push this knight off. A little different than the knight off variation. You know, I could also take the knight here. But that does run the risk of a fork. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead with that idea. Let's pop over to lihs.org. I'm trying to catch up on everything. It's going to be a pretty long video, I suppose. Second thought, I'm going to take a break. I've got time for those games on LHS.org.